And remember, I'm going to be sharing this PowerPoint and materials later with you. Paulo will share it with you guys, or Lubitsa. And then if you're here in the room, make sure to talk loud so people in the online portion of the session can hear you well. So welcome everybody. While you log in, I'm going to do a little recap of last session. I just have a question. If you are online, do you see the screen well, or do you have gray in top of that? You see it well? Okay, perfect. So last session, we kind of like did some like definitions of AI, what it is done. What we're going to be doing today is more like an introduction very quickly, like the things that we did last time, and it's going to be hands-on. And the session logistic is going to be, I'm going to introduce one type of activity we can implement in the classroom or in our offices when we're preparing classes. And then I'll show you what happened with my example, and we're going to be going into breakout rooms. So you can try that. And I'm going to give and share with you some prompts so you are able to just copy and paste and adapt to your own context. We're going to be exploring engaging examples, activity generation for class. We won't have time to do the generating solution approaches, but we'll do on-demand practices, and then at final we wrap up. I'll post some examples and prompts for this. There are two that we're not going to be covering because I really want you to spend more time doing that, hearing about it. So we're going to explore 3 out of these that I have here. The materials you're going to need, make sure that your generative AI tool is on and ready to be working with. And every time you see that symbol of ChatGPT in the slide, is because we're going to be working in a hands-on activity. And also I'm going to be sharing in the chat in a minute the companion.google document where I have the text of the customizable prompts for each of the examples we have. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat. You can also speak out loud here in the room or on Zoom, and then I'm happy to accept any questions throughout the session. So, and I mentioned this before, AI will not replace you or replace us. A person using AI will replace us. So AI is here to help you extend your expertise. So we need to think about it and then be very creative every time we're trying to interact with AI. This is the same definition I showed you last time, and is what is a generative AI tool? It's a large language model, which is knowledgeable and intelligent, like an assistant designed to understand and generate human-like responses in natural language interactions. What is confusing about the generative AI tools is that they sound like human, but they're not. They sound like intelligent, but they're not. They're just trying to reproduce chain of words that sound like human conversations. Now, we can always say, like, how do you define intelligence, right? And that's something else that maybe we can discuss another day. And what is prompt engineering? Is anything that you use to interact with the tool. It could be a message, a question, a statement, a request, a set of instructions. It could be other input that you can always put in the dialog box. With the advances of AI, the first tool of ChatGPT kind of like was released. It was not kind of, it was released in December or October 2022. So it's less than 2 years. And already we can upload files to ChatGPT. Sometimes it can understand images and PDFs. And it also is able to create PDFs and printouts when you have the paid version of ChatGPT 4.0. So this thing is changing. So I have this, maybe in a month, you're going to have a longer list of things, how you can interact with the generative AI. So the key ideas of prompt engineering is that essentially is an art of crafting questions or prompts to guide the AI models. So they produce the output you desire. So it is crucial that you want to get a response. The response is going to be heavily weighed on how do you ask for the output. Okay, so the better your output, the better is going to be the response. So you have to really, it's kind of like a white canvas where you can say, okay, I wanna make this model to help me for this. I want him to not him. I want it to actually act in certain ways. I should have said, but it sounds like a man. Only Claude sounds like a woman. So the guidance for the prompting is like, you always want to say a role for it. You want to give it a role. You usually can use the pattern called act as. So you can say act as a student, act as an expert in this, act as a professor, etc. You want to give it a task, very clear task. Then you want to give it the requirements or like constraints of that task, and then instructions that AI should act upon. So sometimes it will be just give me the answer of this. Sometimes you can say do this, but then ask me a questions about it. Or you can say do this, but do it in this format, right? So you can always have an action added to the end to have the output look like in a certain format. This diagram is nice. I took this from Michael Carter, and it's kind of like prompt engineering. It's kind of like a way to understand AI, craft prompts, in kind of have an iterative and refining process. And there are practical tips about it, which is like always start simple, use examples. This is what we're going to be doing today, and be direct. So sometimes a very long, you need to find like the good middle where you are not giving a huge like prompt or a very like succinct prompt. You want to be in that place where you give enough information for you to get the output you desire. And sometimes what you can do it as a process of refining. So you can start saying, I'm going to be doing this today. Let's say act as a student who is trying to learn about differential equations, second order differential equations, whatever it is. And then have the student ask me questions about this. Then you see the questions like, okay, these questions, I want the questions to be with applications to civil engineering. And then you can start adding information as it is like evolving into that space you're creating for the AI to work. And as I was saying before, not all prompts are equal. The better your prompt, the better is going to be your output. I'll show you the QR code for, this is what we're going to be doing for the document. So if you use this QR code, you're going to have access to the companion document. And I'll show you what is in a minute. It's here, so you see what you're going to be loading up. This is session 1, so I think session 2. And then I'm going to put this link in the chat. I just put the link on the chat, but this is the document that I call the companion document where we're going to be going through all the different templates that we're going to be using for the hands-on activities. Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
No, it's good. I forgot. Thank you for letting me.
Yeah, of course. It's the one with the line.
That? No.
Yeah, we're seeing the Google document.
Yes, I want to show that for a minute.
That's what we're seeing.
So if you see that and you just scroll down, you can access, if you don't have any AI tool, these are the instructions like Pablo on how to access Copilot, which is a Microsoft tool that is powered by ChatGPT 4. It has some like different features that the one that you pay for, but it's still very good. And then we're going to be having all the interactions here. We're going to go one by one of these. So we're going to be engaging with example, how to create engaging examples for class, how to create engaging activities for class, how to create on-demand practice for students so they can actually use that, or you can like work with them in the lab, like to see how they can use the tools to help them prepare for a quiz or an exam. And then some ideas for you to practice on your own. For each of these 3 first interactions, we're going to be in groups. So probably here we can be groups in the group that is in person. And then we'll see, depending on how many people are online, we create some breakout groups. And once we go there, so these are the logistics. I'll give you an example first, how it looks like in ChatGPT, and then you can choose here, you have the instructions there, okay? So you'll be able to follow through. So let me go back here, let me just share the screen again. So is everybody with access to the companion document? Everybody can access the companion document? Yes? No, maybe? Is everybody good with the companion document?
I'm seeing a number of people on the Google Doc, so I believe it's working. So.
Yeah. Just, I can show this, just take this QR code. On the computer, I put in the Zoom a link.
Yeah, but he's not.
He's not, oh, that's a good point.
No, I'm gonna log into Zoom and then I can.
No, I can send you by, could you please send it by email to these people here? Yeah, thank you, Pablo.
Elena, I gotta run.
Oh.
Just for 1 sec, I'll be right back.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so while we get ready, so we're going to be working with engaging example, which is the interaction number 1. And engaging examples is kind of how we can create engaging examples. Before we go to the Google Companion, I'm going to share with you one that I already did in ChatGPT just today. So I have my ChatGPT here, so I'm going to share my screen. So engaging example. So I usually teach statistics. So before you start working on the prompts, just you can look at this example and you say, I have some community college students that are there's some like grammar errors, which is fine. ChatGPT will understand anyway, that are struggling with the concept of a standard deviation. March Madness just finished. Help me create some examples to better explain concepts related to the standard deviation. We will start with simple examples and then get some more complex when I tell you. So here I'm giving him the context and I'm giving like detailed instructions of the topic that I want them to be, that I want ChatGPT to create and examples from, activities from. I know in this case it's examples. And why? Because I want them to understand that concept. Then when I generate this is what it's showing me, right? It's saying, yes, sure, using the context of March Madness can be a fun and relatable way to explain a standard deviation, blah, 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 blah. And then you can see what it has produced. So it gave me a basic example. It's giving me actual data to work with the students in class. It's giving me the concept that it's exploring and questions for the discussion that I can work with in class with the students. Now, my work here is to read and make sure that it makes sense. So in this case, it makes sense. You know, we have 5 scores and we want to compare how the distribution is. They ask also calculate the mean. So it's a very complete example. Now we have another one. It creates about game outcomes. It creates another one about game scores. It creates another one about player performance. So it's good. I have 3 good examples. I can work out, maybe I can explore one of them and say, okay, you know, it's really good. Let me just try to see. I want to get some more excitement. So let's build a more exciting story about these examples. So maybe start with a more basic information about the standard deviation, explain the basic concept, and then make a story. The story should have 2 to 3 examples. So I'm trying to make a narrative from one of the examples that ChatGPT can choose on its own. So I'm trying to interact with it to just like funnel out that creative process that we're having. It's like I'm having this brainstorming with ChatGPT. And it's like, okay, I'll do that for you. Very good idea. It's like golden opportunity to explore. And then it like really talks to you about why it's good to do this, right? So it's like having someone with you working alone. And then created this one, the tale of 2 rivals, consistency versus wild cards. And then you can just go through it and see that actually is pretty accurate. It creates a very interesting exercise. If your students were not interested in basketball, you can create one about urban issues in New York City. It's, you know, exploring standard deviation. Whatever it is, the topic. It could be any topic. And it gives you the different acts, examples, moral of the story. And then it's like, okay, and I'll stop here. It's like this can generate PDFs. So what we're going to be doing now, at the end, actually, let me show you something. At the end, I said, like, you know what? Why don't you create a visual of the comparison of the two teams? And I created this kind of like picture of the two teams that he was comparing throughout the story. And you know, it's weird, it's using this language that they use sometimes in the picture generation, the image generation, that it looks like you can understand what it says, but it's not really English, but it gives you an idea of that. So, you know, you can play and start like play with this for hours, right? But the key point is to really filter out what is valuable and what is not valuable, what really makes sense for you to do in your class or to present to your students. So what we're going to be doing now, how many people do we have in the Zoom? Participants? So we have,
Three people minus myself.
okay, so let's do some groups of three, random groups of three. So what we're going to be doing now is, if you go, let me show you the PDF, we're going to be doing breakout work. So if you breakout rooms, once you're there, go to the companion to Google Documents and look at the interaction number 1. There are 3 different prompts there. In your group, agree which one you're going to be working on and fill in the blanks. We work on this in 15 minutes together in the breakout rooms, and then you come back and you share your experience. So we work here together.
So, Laura, are you on Zoom?
Any questions about how it's going to
Should
be
I,
working?
should
How
I
is
come
the
out
thing
of Zoom?
working?
I only went there to get the document.
I know, it's okay. It's okay. I just wanted to know if you want something.
So I'm going to share the Google Docs so you actually see what we're going to be doing.
To create samples of.
So if you look at the Google Doc. This is not- You see, example, interaction number 1. We have choose one of the prompts below, complete the information, and then select one of these prompts. So for example, in my case, the example that I just showed you, I said create examples of standard deviation that are expressed in terms of March Madness. If you want to give it more context on the type of the students you want or you have in your classroom, etc., it's good. Or you can choose any of the other 3 prompts, and let's see what happens. So any questions about the activity? No questions?
So it will be just 2 groups
Okay,
online, 1 of 2, and then another group of 3, and then us.
perfect. So we can open up now the rooms, and with that, we can start working for 15 minutes. Together, maybe one person tries, or you can all try it together, and then have some time to discuss what you get, how, like, maybe ask 2-3 questions after the first output to see if you know, to see if it makes sense or not for your students, and then we come back together and see what happens. So welcome back. I hope you had fun working with this prompt. If you did, if anybody would like to share their experience here or in Zoom, you're welcome to. So we have about 7-8 minutes to share. I really want to hear your thoughts, the impressions. Are you convinced? You're not convinced? Is it good? Bad? Anybody? Anybody?
Yeah, I can go,
Okay, thank you, David.
sure. So
Can you hear David well? Yeah, okay.
yeah, normally I'm with the owl. So for my prompt, I put in a request, well, I'll read it. I asked it to create examples of training activities for a group of student success mentors, and then parenthetically I wrote SSMs. SSMs are undergraduate student mentors at a community college. The broad theme of the training is student belonging. We'd like the activities to focus on how to cultivate an environment of belonging for first-year students. The activities should center around SSM's own experiences. And I was really impressed with the responses that it gave. I used Copilot. It gave 7 responses and they were very succinct and concise. I haven't used Copilot too much, but I was impressed with the way that they were more kind of focused and succinct versus ChatGPT, which I've used before, and I've noticed it tends to kind of ramble on without providing anything that's particularly helpful. A couple of these activities we've actually done before, which I think is kind of scary, because we've done similar work. But I thought for the most part they were helpful, and then one in particular I thought was especially helpful. So I asked, based on what Elena advised, to create a handout and more of a fleshed out activity based on one of the things that it shared, which it did, and it shared resources. It actually cited its sources from schools and nonprofits, one of which I'm very familiar with. So yeah, it was positive. I liked it. I mean, obviously it has to be taken with a grain of salt, like most, generative AI things and responses, but I'm gonna run with this and play around with the activity that it provided and use it as sort of a base and see where it goes.
Yeah, thank you,
Yep.
David. And I think that's a good point of saying that, when you have ChatGPT 3.5 or Copilot, that you have to read a lot to be able to filter what's going on, which is fine because you're saving time in the brainstorming part. But then, as again, grain of salt, some things make sense, some things are like maybe too advanced, maybe you need to refine, and that's the process of refining that we're talking about. So thank you, David. I think Loretta.
Hi, as most of you don't know, I'm not academic. I work in enrollment management, so I look at this thing a little differently. But trying to do the academic side, I asked Copilot, Thomas and I and Berkey asked it, what are reasons for students to receive grades higher or lower than their test results? And then, so we got, and Thomas and I did it a little bit differently. So we got the same information, but mine is very cut and dry. So I got reasons for why they're higher and reasons for why they're lower. Whereas Thomas got them, they were not as separate. So it's same wording, just same words, just not in the same order. So that's an interesting concept. I then asked it if they could be specific to LaGuardia, but I had other stuff in Copilot before, so it was answering my other question, not that. But if Thomas wants to answer, he did, and they gave other answers that may or may not be LaGuardia specific, which is kind of what I was looking for. But I like Copilot. I use it weekly.
Yeah, so some of the things I use both ChatGPT and Copilot to go through and do this, and I asked the question in Copilot first, and Copilot just gave me a very brief list of reasons as to why the test scores would differ. Then when we kind of went through and asked the second question about specifically targeting LaGuardia Community College students, it gave us a whole bunch of other, like another list of reasons. But when I went through and put the same prompts over into ChatGPT 3.5, I got like almost the same thing that that Loretta had gotten. And what happened was that it just gave you the reasons for higher test scores and lower test scores. So I feel like a lot of the responses are going to be a lot more in depth with ChatGPT rather than going through Copilot or using like the ChatGPT 4 on Bing. So and the only other problem too is that I would like to kind of, they were giving us some data too about like percentages as to students who attend full-time and students who attend part-time in ChatGPT, not in ChatGPT, in Copilot. But I wasn't getting any of that information within ChatGPT 4, and I mean ChatGPT 3.5, because of the fact that when you're using these AIs, ChatGPT 3.5, its knowledge databases, the last time it was updated was in I think back in January of 2022 or 2021. So it's not going to give you any of the current data or information about LaGuardia. So I'm guessing that what the data that I'm getting from Copilot is probably the most recent data for the college right now.
Yeah, that's interesting. So there are two things that I like to highlight here, and is that there, when we were talking last session on temperature, right?
Yeah.
So if I use exactly the same prompt in ChatGPT 3.5 or Copilot or ChatGPT 4.0, I might not get exactly the same answer, but the general idea is the same. In the same way, if someone asks me a question, I might different days, I might give the same answer with different phrasing. But if I want to see ambiguity, I need to provide an ambiguous prompt. But if I really want to receive or see output that is very detailed, then I need to give more detail on how what is the context, right? So if say, what are the students' reasons for the grades not to be good? I don't remember exactly what the prompt was. But then you don't say where the students are, what is the college, where is the level, are they in the city, is rural, who are you? Are you an academic? Are someone from the administration? Then all those components are going to change your output. And the second thing that I wanted to highlight is that I know ChatGPT 4.0 can read websites now.
Yeah.
So you can put a link and then it will read the website, so you can make sure that you have the information that is the latest. And this is where you open up new information that it was not used in the training. So you can take that information and then use it as a context to be able to be updated. I don't know if it does it in Copilot, probably it does. I haven't tried it, so this is something to try. So very interesting. Thank you so much to see that point of view that is not just academics. What?
I'm a little into the tech side of using the ChatGPT. So I asked it some technical questions about something to do with cryptography and stuff. And the answers were amazing. And I asked it to further explain, and the explanation went really, really well beyond what I was expecting. I used ChatGPT. I mean, some of the technical stuff won't change overnight. So it was getting decent. I used Google Gemini. It was coming out decent. But one thing I found was Google, the examples that Google was giving me with Gemini was not actually working.
Oh.
So some of the coding that it came out was not even working. ChatGPT, even though it had stopped and I used the free one, it was working. And I used Copilot, and it's coming up. It was really nice. So between all three, you can come up with something decent. You'll have a well-rounded idea. But trust one of them 100% it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Whatsoever.
Yeah. That's a good point. And it's once if you just work with one and then you start working with another generative AI tool, the tone. The tone, it explains things to you and talks to you is different. And the way it interacts. So yeah, so the more you can ask the same prompt to different generative AI tools, the more kind of views of the same point, the position you can take on and then decide what is best or combine them all, right? So this is very useful.
Supposedly Copilot, I don't know if you have that yet for me. It should look into your OneDrive and read files from it. Gemini can look into your Google Drive and look at your files inside.
But only if you instruct them to do that.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. They won't do it automatically. Yeah. Otherwise, it will be scary. I don't want them to be looking at my files without being asked before. Yeah, thank you, Emma. Anybody has another comment or question? So are we ready for the second experiment? Second interaction? We have one more, maybe. We don't have time for what time are we going to be on?
4:30.
Yeah.
So
So I can stay until 5, but let's do one more. And then, if you go to your companion side, we're going to be doing the engaging activities you can do on your own. The one I want to do, share the screen. Yeah, this is the Google Doc. Yeah.
Yep.
The one that I want to be doing is the on-demand practice. So I'm going to show you ChatGPT on-demand practice. So what I did is I asked
It's supposed to be
ChatGPT to help me.
10:30.
Yes.
Would you mind sharing your screen?
It's supposed to be 10:30.
Oh, I see. Sorry, I thought that this was the screen. I'm sorry. You were saying about this. Thank you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is kind of like show you how to create on-demand practice. So it could be for you to be able to generate questions for your class, or how to show your students how to use ChatGPT or any generative AI tool to help them prepare. So I have used this in my differential equations class when I ask the students to create questions for the exam, and they have to create it with ChatGPT or a generative AI tool, and they have to let me know if the question makes sense or not. And then from the ones that they decide that make sense, then I can just from there select a couple of them for the exam. So they know the questions, but they have selected them, but they need to work through the process of saying, is this a question that makes sense or not? So let me just see if I can just show you that here. So this is kind of like the prompt that I started with. I said, I need you to quiz me about methods to solve. This is very technical, these differential equations, but you can adapt this for any topic. To solve first order differential equations. You give me a first order differential equation, and I have to identify the method to solve it. So this is today, they had the exam about it. So it's like, okay, all right, let's start with a simple one. So he gives me one, which method? And I say the name of the method. I could have used like 5 different names for the same method. It understood perfectly, like, yeah, it works, direct integration. It gives me input about why. So a student can learn why, right? So it says, yes, it's correct. Since the question is this, then you can do this, and this is the solution. Now, I could have asked, could you please solve that equation step by step? It does it for you if you ask it, but I just wanted to have more questions. So it gives me another question. What about this equation, right? And I said, this equation is a linear equation. That's right. This differential equation is first order, and then explains again why. Why is that type of equation? And it actually does it. Now, this one here, I put the wrong, so it gives me another equation. I put the wrong method. It's not a homogeneous equation. So I just put that in there to see what happens. And then it was like, actually, this one is a bit tricky. And then it starts saying something that is like very convoluted, but he's trying to explain why it's incorrect. So in that case, I was kind of like iffy about it, but it gives me a lot of explanations, because homogeneous has different meanings inside the subject of differential equations. So it was getting itself, it was kind of like talking to itself, but it was like giving me the output, trying to realize what was going on. But then it explained what the homogeneous method is, and then he gave me another. And I got tired of the things, so I said, like, you know what? Show me how to solve, like how, this is completely wrong, like sentence, right? Show me how to solve the best of the equation. And he understood. And he says, okay, to solve the differential equation, you use this, and it gives me the steps to do it. It actually solves it wrong. The solution is not correct. But you know, you can just say, like, figure it out your own. If you're preparing for the class, you can just sit down and see the students, like, what is the error here? And it becomes an opportunity for learning, and then makes them realize that not everything that comes out of ChatGPT is actually correct, that you really need to be critical about it when you're using it. And I said, like, for the previous, so I was trying to like guide it to the correct answer, and it didn't work out. So I know it did work out. So, you know, here it is, and it solves the equation, and then correctly the proof. So it's very interesting what it's doing that, right? And then I continue having a different topic for quizzes. So it's really useful if you wanna use it in your classroom in a way to create critical thinking and also a space for learning. I think it works very well with very basic conceptual topics. So let's try that. So again, let's do it in breakout rooms. And we tried, I'm going to show you what prompt you can use. And it's this one on demand practice, and I have these 3 prompts. And you can try any of these prompts. And then you can see they are slightly different. There are 2 prompts. We're learning about something. Please create a quiz for me based on this. Ask me 1 question at a time. And you say, ask me the first question. And then sometimes you can keep you asking questions and questions and questions. You can say, just ask me 10 questions, maybe, or you can just say, stop asking me questions. But you just will continue doing that. Or the one generate 10 sample problems that express this and help me apply the concepts. So it's really, really flexible with that. You can try, for example, something basic in any of your disciplines, and it'll be fun to see. Any questions? No? So let's do the breakout rooms, and then we work on it for 7 minutes, maybe, and then we come back. Let's say 5 minutes? 5 minutes, and then we come back. Yeah. Anybody would like to share your experience creating on-demand practice? I just want to share before anybody that we noticed that in Copilot, it doesn't save your previous chat. So if you create a new topic, it's going to you're going to lose everything. So you need to export it before you create a new topic, which is mean.
Yeah.
Which is mean, yes, it is mean.
It is mean because, all the work we do with the prompt and then you lose that. Anybody would like to share? What did you do with the prompt or how did it behave for you?
Well, I have my hand up.
Okay, oh yes, sorry, it's the corner, so I can see it. Lucy, go on.
Yeah, I just put a question there. The question said, let me just read precisely how I asked. So I asked, sorry, 1 second, because I have multiple questions. So write an equation with implicit differentiation and tangent line at a given point. And the ChatGPT gave me, sure, I'll give you a question that is related to this. And it says, consider the equation of the circle given by x squared plus y squared equals to 25, use implicit differentiation, find dy over dx, then determine the equation of the tangent line to the circle at the point 3, 4. And it gives me the whole procedure of how to solve it. So it says implicit differentiation given the equation, and it says d over dx of x squared plus y squared equals d over dx of 25, and it continues solving it. So 2x plus 2y times dy over dx equals to 0, and it continues and finds dy over dx equals to minus x over y. And then it says the step 2 is tangent line at 3, 4, and it says to find the slope of the tangent line at the point 3, 4, we substitute 3 for x and 4 for y. So dy over dx would be minus 3/4, and then it continues with writing using the point slope formula, y minus y1 equals to m times x minus x1, and it substitutes the values and finds the m over that. Once it finds the equation, which is y equals to minus 3/4 x plus 25/4, then it explains that this is the solution. And then I asked an extra question and said, is the point 3,5 in our tangent line? And it says to determine the point, if the point 3,5 is in a tangent line or not, we substitute the x with 3 and y equals to 5 into the equation of the tangent line, and it plugs it in, and it comes to an untrue or not true statement, 5 equals to 4, and explains that the point is not in the circle, and explains in details.
So the question is it correct? Because some of us are, like some of the audience
Yes,
is not
it is
that.
correct, yes. So the whole procedure is correct, the equation is written correctly, of the tangent line, the differentiation is done correctly, and the proven of the 0.35 not being in a tangent line is correct. It comes to a not true statement, 5 equals to 4 after the substitution, and it explains that that point is not in the tangent line because it doesn't check the.
So are you happy with the interaction with ChatGPT or Copilot on that question?
No, I didn't, we didn't have time to, because we talked with each other as well about the question. So we didn't have time to check it in Pilot, but I'll do it later for myself. I don't know if the others are going to do it.
Okay, thank you, Lucy.
We were talking about it, so that's why it took a little time to kind of, discuss this.
Yeah, I know we're running because we're already at 4:30, so I don't want to keep people too long. I'm going to stay until 5, but if you want to share something before leaving, I'm just going to say something before anybody's going to share. If you have to leave, because I know some people might have to leave. I'm going to share quickly the presentation. This presentation is going to be shared with you guys. But what I want to do is like, if you, this QR code that I'm going to share with you too, is will have access to a Google Doc where you can share uses, ideas, prompts that you might have used in your class. And then I'm going to be putting things there too, so people can like, we can create like a repository of ideas. And it's going to be living there and people can just like contribute to it. I'll share the link if you're not able to find, like use the QR code now, in case someone would like to share about their experience. And if you need to leave, you're welcome to leave. If you can stay longer, you're welcome to stay too until 5.
I would love to stay until 5, but I'm there.
So I understand. So, you know, and there are many prompts in those Google Companion docs. Just play with them, figure it out how it works. The session 1 also is recorded and the companion document is also there. So you can just, you know, it's for you to play around. So thank you very much. If anybody has any more comments or questions.
Thank you so much and have a great day, everyone.
Bye, Lucy.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Thomas.